What if the terrifying mushroom cloud never rose over Hiroshima? Imagine a world where the atomic bomb remained an untested theory and World War II played out on entirely different terms. What would our timeline look like if on August 6, 1945, President Truman decided not to use the atomic bomb? Buckle up, because this story takes us on a dramatic detour through history. In this alternate timeline, the U.S. moves forward with Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan. In November 1945, Allied forces land on Kyushu in an operation known as Olympic. What they find is beyond devastating. Japanese soldiers, civilians, and even children fiercely defending their homeland. The streets turn into battlegrounds, with casualties mounting on an unprecedented scale. Over 1 million American soldiers perish, alongside 5 million Japanese lives, including civilians caught in the crossfire. Entire cities, already ravaged by firebombing, are leveled in the chaos. By late 1946, with Allied forces nearing Kyoto, Emperor Hirohito breaks the deadlock and orders Japan's surrender. But this decision comes too late for millions who've already died in what becomes one of the bloodiest chapters in human history. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union, emboldened by Japan's vulnerability, invades the northern island of Hokkaido. Their forces establish control over vast areas, creating a division eerily similar to post-war Germany. By the war's end, Japan is split, a Soviet-dominated north and an American-occupied south. The seeds of future conflict are planted. Without Hiroshima and Nagasaki, the world never sees the true horrors of atomic warfare. The bomb remains a shadowy concept, its devastating power relegated to scientific debates. Public fear of nuclear annihilation never takes hold, and policymakers treat nuclear weapons as speculative tools rather than military necessities. This delay in nuclear adoption radically alters the post-war landscape. The US and the USSR continue research, but without Hiroshima's grim demonstration, nuclear weapons don't become the backbone of military power until well into the 1950s. The Cold War begins on a foundation of conventional military strength, not nuclear deterrence. Japan, devastated by prolonged fighting, faces an uncertain future. The southern half, under U.S. control, struggles to rebuild amid widespread destruction. Northern Japan, occupied by Soviet forces, transforms into a communist state. This division mirrors the fates of Germany and Korea, with a stark ideological and economic rift that shapes East Asia's geopolitics for decades. Reconstruction in Japan slows to a crawl. With infrastructure destroyed and resources stretched thin, the economic miracle that transformed Japan in our timeline doesn't occur until the 1960s. The scars of war linger longer, and Japan's role as a global economic powerhouse is postponed. In this altered timeline, the Cold War unfolds in unexpected ways. The absence of nuclear fear emboldens the Soviet Union. Stalin sees the U.S. as less dominant, taking more aggressive actions in Eastern Europe and Asia. In 1948, the Berlin blockade escalates into outright conflict, with U.S. and Soviet forces locked in bloody battles over the fate of Germany. In 1950, the Korean War takes a darker turn. Without the threat of nuclear retaliation, China and the Soviet Union ramp up their support for North Korea. Massive Chinese forces pour into Korea, prolonging the conflict and drawing U.S. forces into a quagmire. The war spreads beyond the Korean peninsula, creating instability across East Asia. Without the concept of mutually assured destruction, conventional wars remain the primary way nations settle disputes. This leads to more frequent but less catastrophic conflicts. The fear of total annihilation that kept superpowers in check is absent, and global tensions escalate into regional wars throughout the late 1940s and 1950s. The absence of Hiroshima means the atomic age of the 1950s never takes root. Public fascination with nuclear technology fades, replaced by skepticism and cautious development. Without the bomb's shadow, cultural fears center on ideological battles and conventional war rather than nuclear holocaust. Iconic works like John Hersey's Hiroshima and the Godzilla films are never created, leaving a void in post-war literature and media. Nuclear energy, seen as too dangerous or untested, remains on the periphery of scientific progress. The world approaches nuclear technology with more hesitancy, delaying advancements in both weaponry and energy production. The Soviet occupation of northern Japan reshapes East Asia. With a stronger foothold in the region, the USSR becomes the dominant power, influencing communist movements across China, Korea, and Southeast Asia. Mao Zedong consolidates power in China more rapidly, accelerating the spread of communism and setting the stage for earlier Sino-Soviet rivalries. The absence of nuclear deterrence leads to a world marked by constant instability. From the Berlin blockade to conflicts in Korea and beyond, superpowers are less restrained. Conventional warfare replaces Cold War posturing, leading to a more violent and chaotic global landscape. By 1955, this alternate timeline is a far cry from our own. The Cold War is bloodier, Japan remains divided and struggling, and the world teeters on the edge of conflict at every turn. The delayed rise of nuclear weapons only postpones their eventual use, potentially under even more dangerous circumstances. In sparing Hiroshima and Nagasaki, humanity avoids one nightmare, only to stumble into countless others. The lesson? History is never as simple as a single decision, and even the best intentions can carry unimaginable consequences. What would you do in this world? Would it be safer or far more terrifying? Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more alternate history deep dives.